Hey guys, it's Jennifer Don Gabiola, and I wanted to share this video that has been on my heart for a couple weeks. I'm glad I waited because the past couple weeks I've been, given what's been happening in the world with all the racial tension, um, as an introvert and an empath and highly sensitive person, it was a lot to take in. So my spirit told me to take a step back and really reflect and collect my energy and take in and learn, actively listen, so I can like dig deeper and really reflect on how to move forward, right? And to help the world heal collectively, but also like specifically what I can do to do my part. So that's the purpose for the video today, and I'm titling it Four Keys for Introverts, Empaths, and Highly Sensitive People to Be an Effective Ally, Leader, and Entrepreneur. So, again, I know that if you do identify with all three or one of these, as an introvert, empath, and highly sensitive person, um, what's been happening is a lot to take in, especially if you're a person of colors. So, just know that you're not alone, and that's really why I feel moved to share this video, to share my personal insights. You know, it's not the end all be all truth, but I did want to share my process, my insights that I've been gaining, to hopefully help you navigate, moving forward, especially if you have a business. So, uh, what I'll be sharing is I'm going to share a quick personal story, um, um, to share, just really talk about why I feel moved to talk about this topic. And then I'll go over the four keys, to help you be an effective ally, leader, and entrepreneur, and Q&A. And I want to thank my Quiet Voice Big Impact community for submitting some really insightful questions. So I'll be sharing that at the very end. So definitely, if you can wait to the end for the questions, and if you even have other questions, you can also post in the comments too. All right. So first off, I wanted to share a personal story. So this is like, I've been reflecting on my relationship with what's happening in the world, and with all the racial tension, the oppression. And so I've been like just digging deeper into my own personal story, my culture, my history as a Filipino American. And I remember growing up, being very young, and always feeling like there was something wrong with me. Like I was always afraid to make a mistake. I always felt anxious, even when I was little. And uh, and then as I grew up, I always had that feeling of like I was never good enough, and I had to prove my worth through my performance and people please and overextend myself, and so many, looking back, it was very disempowering. So I wanted to like really dig even deeper into my um, history as a Filipino. And so, as many of you know, I really want to go like way back, and see how this all correlates. So, as many of you know, like the Philippines was colonized by the Spaniards. And I was thinking more about like this concept of colonization. It's like you have a land where, and a culture that is yours, you know, and then you have people who come from another land who basically take ownership over you and your culture for monetary gain and influence. And that has got to do something to your psyche because it's like you become like a commodity, like something that can easily be sold and traded. And um, I remember going to the Philippines um, for the first time as an adult. And I remember going with my family and feeling like when we were there, I definitely felt a sense of home. Like this is deeply a part of who I am. And what also struck me was this deep self hatred and rejection for uh, how you naturally are, especially with your skin. I would see celebrities, most people who quote unquote had influence, their skin was white. And it was very normal, still is normal, uh, to sell these skin whitening creams. They're on the commercials and billboards. It's just like this deep, deep seated messaging that if you want to be successful, uh, you have to lighten your skin. The darker your skin, the more you are considered poor. And I, that just really was disturbing for me because it's like, because skin whitening creams are very dangerous. They're hazardous to your health. So just this again, like being colonized, it's like you're being subconsciously told like you're not enough. Uh, what your purpose is for material gain, and that's I felt that you know in my culture too is just also just being Asian in general. It's like our whole uh, generally speaking, it's like your self-worth is based on your performance, your achievements, and to work at a high level of excellence all the time, like almost like you're a robot. I'm just speaking from my personal experience, but that's what it felt like, is that your worth was based on how well you perform and how well you're going to succeed and how much money you're going to make. And that does something again to your psyche where you don't feel like who you are inherently is enough. And so I just remember like growing up feeling that. And so I feel like it's part of my like ancestral line, my culture. And this oppression that's passed down from generation to generation, it's just like I feel in my spirit I am doing my part to break that. So I stop oppressing myself, right? And feeling like I am not enough. So I have to overcompensate, overextend myself, overdo things, be something that I'm not. And I'm just here to say that I'm stopping this cycle for myself, for my family. And it's a process and it's a painful process, but this oppression we see in the world, it is deeply connected to each of us individually. And so I feel it's our responsibility to look deep within. What are our racial biases? You know, how can we heal what needs to be healed so we feel whole and use our privilege to dismantle the structures that support racism? How do we use our businesses for a higher purpose, not just for capitalistic gain? How do we really create a future that is based on equity and equality moving forward for everyone? So everyone benefits from being treated fairly as a human being, right? So yeah, it just again, this has been a deep and painful process, but I'm learning more and more that the discomfort is a part of the growth. So you know, continuing to do my own work around this um, has revealed some insights that I've gained, some downloads about how we can move forward, um, and make a positive impact with who you are and what you came here to do, especially with your business as an introvert, an empath, and a highly sensitive person. So I want to share the 4 keys now, so you can be an effective ally, leader, and entrepreneur. So um, the first key is to do no harm, um, to be an effective ally for others and yourself. And I kind of touched on this with my story, but we have to take personal responsibility for uh, the dark side, the shadow work, the things we don't want to see about ourselves. We have to take personal responsibility for that, those biases first and foremost, before we can make any sort of impactful, effective change on the outside world. I feel like that's something within our control, right? And something that I feel like I feel really moved to talk about is this concept of spiritual bypassing. I've seen it um, with people, how they show up online. Um, I've just seen it in many forms, and I did want to speak up about that. When I think of spiritual bypassing, it's like you're wanting to only see the good. You're only wanting to see the good because the rest, the shadow, the darker stuff, it's heavy and it's uncomfortable. But what I am learning more and more is that to be spiritual, we are spiritual beings, but to be truly spiritual and authentic, there's a sense of wholeness and there's a sense of personal responsibility that as you gain more healing and self-awareness, you're meant to share that with others, right? Whether you are a spiritual healer, a teacher, or it doesn't matter if you're a business strategist, a health coach. The thing is, we're all connected, and when someone does spiritual bypassing, it's like ignoring like the whole being. Like if you can imagine like your whole being, and if like let's say your arm is you have a cut on your arm, you wouldn't just ignore that. You would address that part that's in pain, that's hurting. And I feel like when people show up online in their business and not um, taking a stand, and again, whatever taking a stand looks like for you, but I feel like more and more it's really important for you to be very clear on like where you stand around this, because you can't ignore a part of our body as a collective just because you may benefit from it, from the you have the privilege actually to not address it. And again, this is a human rights issue, so you know everyone is um, being called to help heal this and participate in this movement in their own way. So I'm not into the whole calling out sort of people, and I'm just saying that to be really honest about where you are in your stance around that, and to be in alignment when you show up, and to be true, because um, it's incongruent when you speak about love and light and all the positive things and not address the harm that's happening, because we are human beings and we are all responsible for each other. And again, it all starts with our own inner work. What are our biases? How can we help? How can we educate ourselves? How can we speak up when we do see racism or any level of inequality? Um, and I do feel like long term, like I'm not a racial educator. I'm not saying that you have to like, you know, do things that are authentic to you, but do things that feel true to you so you can contribute to the greater good. And I feel like long term, for people that don't, but that do participate in spiritual bypassing and just not acknowledging the problem and not contributing somehow with their voice and their impact in the world, that's a short-term solution based on your discomfort, and it's going to affect your business long term because um, Black people, people of color, minorities in general will no longer be the minority, and in the near future. And it's really important that as a leader, that you acknowledge what's going on in the world so you stay connected. It's important that we stay authentic and true and synced up to a purpose greater than ourselves. And so what's happening in the world cannot be ignored, right? All right, so that's the key one, is to do no harm, to be an ally for others and yourself. And it starts with you, again, doing the deep inner work and reflecting on your own biases, your own privilege. And that can only help you be a whole human being. And that will help, end this racism. It's just, yeah. So I just want to touch on that. And again, don't be afraid to educate yourself. Notice who you resonate with. I shared a video a few weeks back about quiet activism. You don't have to necessarily protest in the streets. You can do your part, but it has to feel authentic. And it has to be based on where you're contributing, you're taking personal responsibility, and you're doing your part because it feels true to you. Okay, so key number 2 is feminine. It's about feminine leadership. Okay, and we're moving away from this more masculine way of operating in the world to this embracing more of this feminine leadership, which the masculine way is about forcing and pushing, domination, pushing, right? This feminine way is about allowing yourself to work with a force greater than you, whether that be God, the universe, life itself. There is a force happening that is flowing, and it's up to you to actually operate with more of an ease and grace to attune yourself to that. Pay attention to the signs, pay attention to the synchronicities, pay attention to your intuition, your heart discernment. That is so key moving forward, to allow that deeper sensitivity. And I feel that as introverts, empaths, highly sensitives, we have that natural gift of having a deep, rich inner world. So I really encourage you to tap into that more. Allow. It's allow. It's not about force anymore. It's about allowing. And another thing I wanted to share under this feminine leadership is self-preservation is a form of resistance. You being fully self-expressed, you loving yourself, is a radical act. Oppression is trying to keep you small, so you're easily controlled. But if you are free, fully self-expressed, embodying your true nature, your essence, feeling unapologetic to share your voice, your energy, that is how you take a stand. Cultivating your joy. And I know that's tricky because our ego wants to make us feel guilty. How can we feel joyful? How can we rest during this time? There's so much unrest. But that, again, is a form of resistance. And especially as an introvert, quiet time is non-negotiable. So I really encourage you to give yourself full permission to rest when you need, to experience joy every day, whether it can be small. But again, it's giving yourself permission to be full and to embody your highest, truest self. I'm getting goosebumps. Just allowing yourself to show up as your, high self, because again, loving yourself, accepting yourself, operating from a place of fullness, that's revolutionary, and has that is the opposite of being oppressed, right? Okay, key 3, use your voice and speak your truth. Okay, use your voice and speak your truth. There's someone I follow online. It's actually a friend um, I met many years ago. Um, Her name is Layla Saeed, and I was I follow her on Instagram, and she shared a post about her block journey, and she was just talking about, it was a really eloquent post about how she's doing it for her. And there was a couple lines in there in her post that really resonated with me. She said, I exist for me first. I belong to me first. Goosebumps. And again, it speaks to this whole self-preservation, that in order for you to use your voice and speak your truth, you have to feel safe within yourself first, right? You have to have clear energetic boundaries. You have to understand your self-worth. It's not based on anything outside of you. That's not a simple process, but the more you bring that to your awareness and that you make it a priority to feel worthy, to believe in what you believe, to recognize the value of your voice, to give yourself the opportunity to speak up, to be decisive. I, I really feel like the future that is being created now, how you're going to thrive is you have to be decisive, and you can't hide and play small. You don't have to be the loudest, but you can't hide behind this illusion that you're smaller than who you actually are. And that's why I feel like you see so many more people speaking up. It's because the veil is being lifted, truth is coming out. And so I encourage you to, set an intention, a prayer for you to feel safe within yourself. Get the help you need. Journal. You can talk to a therapist. You can hire a life coach. You can pray, meditate. Do whatever you need to do to make yourself first and foremost a priority. Because your voice is definitely needed during this time. Your voice, and being decisive and authentic and true and strong. Again, it's not about being loud, but it's about having conviction, right? That's how you're going to attract the right people to you, because it's not wavering, it's not wishy-washy, and it's a process. I'm not saying that you have to be super vocal tomorrow, but it's about you shifting that dynamic, that relationship with yourself, that you're claiming your truth for yourself in small ways, and then it'll feel more comfortable for you to express your truth on the outside. But it has to start with you first. And this, the more you do that, as you create content, that's what's necessary moving forward. As you create content, it needs to come from a place that feels true and authentic and real and resonant with you. There does need to be some level of fearlessness. It's just like letting go of this need to people please or not rock the boat. Again, there's different degrees to this, but again, it's about freeing yourself, giving yourself permission to speak honestly and not being attached to how people are going to perceive it. Because at the end of the day, you have no control over how people are going to perceive it. But what is really important is that you create content that not only serves your clients to help them reach a desired result, but your energy, your resonance, your voice needs to feel true and aligned, because that is going to cut through the noise of what you see online, is that truthfulness, right? So you have to be brave. And again, it's small, consistent steps, like I call it the turtle way. you don't have to rush through this, but you have to be deliberate with how you show up, because creating content is not just about creating content to create content to be quote unquote relevant. It's about creating content that feels relevant to you, that feels relevant to your people, where you feel passionate about it. It's like you can't not share it, right? So, when I talk about using your voice and speaking your truth, that has to be infused in your content. When you show up on video, in your post, there has to be that authenticity, that realness, that truthfulness, even if it's uncomfortable. Sharing vulnerably, there's a fine line with not sharing too much, like TMI, but sharing stories that feel vulnerable for you, because the goal is for you to express your humanity. That's what this is about. Not being perfect and projecting an image, because that's based on like something that's not real. And the goal of all of this is for you to free yourself and express yourself truthfully. And that's how you're going to organically, energetically attract the right people to you. And then the last key is make your impact and build your financial legacy. So we all have a unique impact to make. And I was talking with a girlfriend of mine, and she said something really insightful. She's like, we were talking about how, you're here for a purpose. And she said something like, I even though I don't know where I'm headed, or I don't know how my purpose is going to fit in with the larger picture of the world, she trusts that God has prepared the way. It's not like you have to figure everything out. It's about you believing and trusting your heart's intelligence, wisdom, discernment, to trust that who you are, how you've been built is on purpose, and to really cultivate that and believe in that and move forward, share your voice, and to know that what you're actually doing is, by you showing up, it's an act of service, and you deserve to financially thrive. You deserve to receive sacred commerce for your services, your products, your services, because it's an equal exchange of value, right? Because ultimately, this is a process of giving and receiving. You give truthfully, you give from your heart because you want to help. And then, of course, in kind, you're going to receive. You're going to receive because you're operating in service. It's a cycle, right? So, building a community is a big part in this, because, I know a lot of people are afraid of like selling, but I really believe there's a process. I've actually learned to enjoy selling, because it's like the when I started to break it down into like creating like a heart connection, and where it felt like a soulful process, like I see you and I understand what you're going through and I want to help, and then to serve and to sell what you have to offer, it feels like a solution to someone's problem. It feels like uh, you're working in tandem with someone. You're not trying to push something on someone, you're actually giving something that would help them. And so, building your financial legacy, so much of building an engaged community and feeling comfortable with selling, but in a really soulful way, is really important, um, to, again, show up in the world where what you give allows you to thrive. And it's your birthright to thrive in all ways, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, and financially, right? So that was key number 4, make your impact and build your financial legacy. Okay, so I hope those 4 keys are helpful for you, to help you be an effective um, ally and leader and entrepreneur, especially if you are a introvert, an empath, and highly sensitive person. And I also wanted to share that if these concepts, if this resonates with you, I feel very led to open up my wait list for my 2020 Quiet Voice Big Impact Mastermind. And we're going to dive deeper in this because this is a deep process. And so, what I feel led to, you know, every year I share my mastermind, but 2020 feels very unique. And so, I'm refining my content in a way where it feels very relevant for this year and how to move forward for years to come. So you can create a business that feels, or you can show up in your business in a way that feels authentic. You're taking into account what's happening currently in the world, the state of the world, and you're giving yourself permission to use your voice, giving yourself permission to create content that resonates, giving yourself permission to engage with your community so you can financially thrive in your business. All based on this sense of joy and permission to be yourself, right? And some of the topics we'll be talking about, um, navigating 2020 with grace and wisdom, like what you stand for as an effective leader, ally, entrepreneur. Basically, really diving deep in this mindset so you can like do no harm to yourself, to others. You can be really an effective leader and ally. And another thing we'll dive deeper that we talked about today is this feminine leadership. Really diving deep into my process called the Turtle Way, and trusting your heart's discernment, your intuition, um, and just really making self-care, as your form of resistance. Like really, to move from this masculine way of working to this feminine way, it is a process, but it's definitely very freeing because you're moving from this controlling way to this allowing way, and it's very liberating. Another topic we'll be talking about is activating your voice and embodying your energy, because your energy is, I know I've heard this phrase before, your energy is your currency. Like that's what people buy. It's like there may be a lot of people that do what you do in your industry, but why people are drawn to you, it's you, your energy, how you show up, you as a person. They trust you. So how do you embody like that authenticity and feel comfortable like sharing your voice, activating your voice really? And a special bonus that will be a part of that month's training is, as many of you know, I love style, and I have this ebook called The Spirit of Style. And in the past, I've had live retreats around this teaching, but what I'm going to do is have a virtual workshop, because it's a fun way for you to really use style as a sacred practice to embody your essence, the true core of who you are. And it's a light and joyful process. We get out of our head and into our hearts. And that's really how I found my voice. That's why I'm going to be sharing that process. We'll also be talking about creating conscious content through written posts, videos. So you feel like what you share online feels very authentic, but also serves your ideal clients. We'll also be talking about community building and engagement, and building your financial legacy, and that will include soulful sales. So that process of talking with leads and closing sales feels, there's more ease and grace around that process. It doesn't feel like you're taking or forcing anything. It's more about you sharing and giving, and it feels way more life affirming. I can tell you that. Okay, if you would like to get on the wait list, you can email me at info@dawningsoul.com, or you can send me a private message and I'll get you on the wait list. This is going to be an intimate small group because I like to go deep. And so there are limited spots available. So if you have any questions, you can also email me at info@dawningsoul.com. But definitely, if you're interested in getting on a wait list, just uh, email me, or you can send me your email uh, via private message. Okay, last but not least, I wanted to get to some of the questions I got from our Quiet Voice Speaking Back community um, in relation to this topic today. So the first question I got was, what can I say so Black people and people of color understand that I hear them? How can I show kindness without being misunderstood? And this is someone who is white. And so when I was tuning into this question, what came to me is, first off, I feel like you have to be really, even though you may not have, because this person expressed that she is like, the concept of racism is very foreign because she doesn't experience that. And so what I would like to say is that you have to be aware of your privilege. You have to be aware of your own racial biases. What helps to start off this process is to actively listen, pay attention to Black leaders, and especially for me, Black female leaders whose work I resonate with. Like, actively listen to what Black people are going through, and people of color, but especially Black people. Okay, and what happened with George Floyd is um, a tragedy, but he is one person that, out of how many this has happened to, where Black people fear losing their life by getting stopped by the police, experiencing police brutality. Um, there's just so many stories out there. It's heartbreaking. So even though you uh, don't have personal experience around racism, it requires a deep level of empathy, right? And that's what I was talking about with the spiritual bypassing. It requires a deep level of empathy for you to be an effective leader. And especially if you are a healer or a spiritual teacher, you have to look at this stuff. You have to. Unless you only want to serve white people. But I just feel like you have to look at this, because it's about, again, what I talked about in the beginning of the video. We are one body. So if there's a part of your body that is being harmed, being hurt, you have to address that, because it's your responsibility to help create this wholeness for the whole body, right? So definitely educate yourself. Be honest with your own racial biases. Actively listen to people you resonate with. Read books. Watch movies. There's a bunch on Netflix. Layla Said, she has a book called Me and White Supremacy. There's another book called White Fragility. You can just look online and just, take small steps to educate yourself, even though it doesn't personally affect you, because that is a sign of privilege, right? And you have to have the desire to have that empathy for others. It's a blessing that you don't experience that. It's a blessing that you don't have to deal with that. Black people, it's not an option, and so it requires a deep level of empathy, and you have to have that desire to learn. And then her second question, how do I show kindness without being misunderstood? I mean, you can't control how people are going to receive you. You will be misunderstood, especially if you're white, but you have to be clear on why am I wanting to engage in this way? You have to give yourself grace to have honest conversations that you don't know what it's like. And if people take it wrong, or you have to let that go, because you have to be so committed to your desire to learn and to be part of the solution, more than, oh, I hope this person doesn't yell at me, or I don't want this person to not like me. No, that's disempowering in itself. You're not doing it for their validation. You're doing it because you want to learn. You want to help, be a part of the solution. You want to end racism, right? So, okay, another question Um, well, I just wanted to finish up by saying, how can I show kindness? Is again by showing that empathy. It's just being like really authentic and like you don't know, and that's okay. And you're doing your best to learn. It's just you have to have that desire to learn, and people can feel that if your intention is pure versus, you know, people calling people out, and it's just like, again, you can feel what people's intentions are, so you're only responsible for you. So you have to be committed to want to learn, even though it doesn't personally affect you, right? Okay. The next question I got was, how do you balance pushing forward with your business in these tough times? All right. So for this question, um, you have to focus and remember your why. Why did you start your business in the first place? Right? Because at the end of the day, there's something magical. There's something that feels bigger than you of why you started your business. You wanted to be a part of something greater. And you have to be that convicted, have that level of conviction that regardless of what's happening outside, you have to remember your why. Why do you want to make an impact? Why are you doing what you're doing? Regardless of how the climate is, because the world will not, the world does not have the power to determine your, the, the course of your life. You have responsibility, you have power to uh, live your life the way you want. And instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, things are feeling heavy, yes, we're all human, it does feel heavy. But at the end of the day, you still have power. You have to remember that power. And the more you stay committed to that why you're doing it, and your desire to serve, let life adjust to you. Yeah. Be honest about what's happening in the world. You know, like as you're creating content, like no one's expecting you to be superhuman during this time. It's about being human, being honest, sharing honestly with your voice, and being of service. And the fuel is for you to remember your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? What is the legacy you want to create? What is your service or product? What is it? How is it going to help people? Why is your desire to help more important than your fear? Why? You have to get that honest and committed with yourself. And remember, and that's going to help you little by little, step by step, to stay focused on moving forward. And don't beat yourself up that, you know, you could have done better, because literally 2020 has been rough. It's been rough. I mean, we're literally living through um, a pandemic, a revolution. I mean, so many things this year, but it's like, give yourself grace that you're doing the best that you can, and no one's expecting you to be quote unquote perfect. The reality is, what we're being called to do is to be real and to be honest and to show up from that place. And that's what will create that resonance with people, because the goal is to show your humanity, show your empathy, show that you care. And that's how you're organically going to build a following, a community that believes you, who wants to support you, right? But you have to, again, believe in yourself first. Okay, and the last question I received was, how do you stay true to yourself in your own integrity and principles when there's so much pressure to say certain things on social media? I don't agree with the bullying and constant calling out of people, trying to just even understand or maybe share a perspective that doesn't completely fit with the dominant narrative. Okay, so when I was tuning into this question, this is the last question. You have to value yourself and what you believe. Um, can't let what you see on the outside sway you, because you have to operate. You're referring this question about your integrity. Well, integrity starts with who you are on the inside. You have to be true to that, regardless of how people respond to you. And so you have to value who you are and what you believe. And what's also helpful is to get clear on your intention in sharing. For example, if you're online and you say you have a opinion that you don't know how it's going to be taken, but you share honestly. I've seen, I mean, most people will feel that um, desire to learn and, respond to you accordingly, with respect. Now, if someone calls you out or is rude, and I've experienced that, just people are just irate, what I'm learning is that when you have strong boundaries, strong energetic boundaries, and you remember that you are valuable, and no matter what people say or what happens outside of you has nothing to do with your self-worth. You have space where then you can see people for if they are upset at you or they're irate, that's a reflection of them. It's not your responsibility to take on. So it's really about being clear on your intention. You're not needing other people's validation. You have the desire to learn, and that's your responsibility. And so I encourage you to have the courage to share honestly, because whatever you believe is true for you, and even if it's not a part of the dominant, what most people are thinking, if you have a desire to learn, then that's enough, right? Again, back similar to the first question, actively listen and ask questions, even if you don't know. Just be sincere, because at the end of the day, you have no control over how people will react to you. And the last thing I'll say, I hope these questions, these answers have been helpful for those of you who had asked these questions. This is really about, at the end of the day, it's about if you're an introvert, empath, highly sensitive person, your energy is very valuable. And something that I'm learning, I'm going to actually share a separate video on this. Your relation to yourself and the world, that's where your power is. Being able to hold your energy in relation to others, holding your energy in relation to anything outside of you. And that's where the challenge is because we feel so much, so our energy kind of spills everywhere. And again, I'll dive deeper in this in another video, but that's how you can be an effective ally, leader, entrepreneur, is that you remember who you are, your value, your conviction, what you believe in, have the desire to learn, have the desire to be a part of the solution, have deep empathy. Give yourself grace when you recognize you have racial biases, and be mindful to change that because it's something that you believe in. Like, we need to tap into the fact that we are connected. We are part of the human race, and right now, our Black brothers and sisters are being harmed, and we have to do our part. All of us have privilege, so it's our duty, our responsibility to do our part, to be self-aware. And it starts with you, who you are on the inside. You take your responsibility for those biases. You recognizing you have privilege, and then using that privilege for the higher good. So I hope this was helpful. It's been on my heart for the past couple weeks. I was praying beforehand that I share what I needed to share, and it comes across clearly. I hope it resonates with you. Would love to know what your biggest takeaways. You can share that in the comments. And again, for my Quiet Voice, Big Impact Mastermind for 2020, I have limited spots. If you would like to get on the wait list, email me at info@dawningsoul.com or send me a private message. But again, like all the concepts and the themes we talked about today, to help you be an effective ally, leader, entrepreneur, and navigate this very radical time. We're just going to dive deeper to help you navigate that into the new year and beyond. So you feel empowered to make your impact and thrive, so you can continue to serve the people that need you. Okay, the turtle way. All right, guys, I'll talk with you soon.